Now coming to the doctrinal aspect, I also want to make a few more comments. In the description, firstly, in the description of, for example, the first jhāna. By the way, the word jhāna, I have commented on this. I don't like translations like absorption, and less still a translation like trance. And I believe that the rendering of meditation is still the best. Actually, the root dhyāna means to contemplate, to meditate. So I would translate jhāna as meditation. In the description of the first jhāna, we see that it starts by talking about vivikcheva, kāmehi, vivikcheva, akusalehi, dhammehi. If we note that, what's the significance of this? It shows us that, as I've said so many times, meditation must be, Buddhist meditation must be done within a totality context. It's not a matter of just technique. So here we are told that to come to the first meditation, the first meditative attainment, the first jhāna, it involves suddenly much more than just a matter of technique. It involves viveka. Viveka means separation. It means detachment. So firstly, at least at the time of meditation, we must put aside our attachment to sensuality, to all that pertains to the sensual sphere. And this is something that much more than just, attachment to passions. Everything that pertains to the nature of sensuality within this sphere of karma dhatu, we have to be detached, at least in the time of meditation. So, and also the unwholesome factors, for instance, hatred, anger, ego, jealousy, all this. When you want to succeed in your meditation, you will have even the attainment of the first meditative state at that time at least. You can't be hypocritical, and it doesn't mean that you will meditate, you become a saint. If that is so, then there would have been many Buddhas today. Yeah? That's not the case. We have to keep on struggling all the time. We make mistakes all the time, so there's no need to be hypocritical. But at least at the time of meditation, you must be able to put aside these things. And that's why Buddhism teaches about the five hindrances, the five nivarana. The Sanskrit word is nivarana, the Pali has nivarana. No, it's not that, it's a mistake. The five hindrances. You see things like covetousness, and hatred, and so on, and even sloth and torpor, with these five factors. All these are hindrances, hinder us from entering to the meditative attainment, the state of meditative attainment. And that would mean that to succeed in meditation, it involves definitely the question of lifestyle. Definitely the question of, for instance, you can simplify your life, even though you cannot be observing this rule, that rule. Actually, observing the rules are of secondary importance. But your heart, your commitment is very important. Your simplicity of life is very important. Your detachment is very important. You should always try to be more compassionate, right? Try to think of others more, for instance. And have your values. according to the Buddha's teaching in your life. And hold the three jewels to be your highest values. So all these things involves, as I say, your whole life, your whole lifestyle. Your emotions, your volitions, your feelings, all your different aspects in the Buddhist doctrine of the five skandhas. Then you can talk about Buddhist meditation within that totalistic, integrated context. And this emphasis I make many times, and you can see what I'm saying is that you can see that in the description of the first jhana, in the word viveka. Vicha is a gerund, being or having been separated, in the sense of being detached. Often people think, if I have a problem, how do I, if I have a very strong ego, how do I overcome it? As if there is a magic, there's a pill you can pop into your mouth and you can solve a problem or egotism or you can't do that. Or mantra, give me a mantra and this mantra solve this problem, that mantra solve that problem. That to me, from what I understand, is not the Buddha's teaching. So you can't deal with your negativities at that very moment. You certainly you should try, at that time. If anger arises in you, if hatred arises in you, and so on, you can try to convince yourself and try to understand, why should I hate, why am I, kind of understand humanity is one, and so on and so on. But you can't treat it as if you have an aspirin near you and just pop your aspirin into your mouth and then you can solve the problem. I hate it. You have to solve the problem from the totalistic context. Think about your lifestyle. Am I living according to the Buddha's teaching? Have I always tried to consciously be more compassionate, to be less involved in my personal relationships, in this social complexity, and so on, you see, and am I always trying to get myself inspired by the Buddha, by his teaching, learn to derive from inspiration, right, to tune into the inspirational force of the Buddha, submit myself to be uplifted through the inspiration. So all this has to do with your whole life and your commitment. So in those few words that we read, we can understand that even to come to the first jhana, the attainment of the first meditative state, it involves much more than just a matter of technique. In fact, the technique itself cannot solve the problem. It certainly helps. I don't deny that. But much more important is your awareness, is your commitment to your whole lifestyle. That's why I said that what we must do as Buddhists is first of all to understand that we must find meaning of our existence as Buddhists. What is the goal of Buddhism? And how to go about achieving that goal, how to go about orientating yourself. What is a framework of orientation within which you can improve yourself according to the Buddha's teaching? This must be at the very center of your existence all the time. Do not worry that you are not perfect. Nobody is perfect. Do not worry that you make mistakes. We all do. But if our goal is firm, if our commitment is firm, if we have the Buddhist principles, if we are sincere to the Dhamma as being our highest guide, the Buddha as being our highest inspiration, then we have the assurance. And it is within such context that you can talk about Buddhist meditation in a meaningful sense. not only in a meaningful sense, but in a healthy way also, in the sense that you would not be misled, you would not enter into pitfalls as a result of meditations. Sometimes things can go wrong. You can feel psychically disturbed, emotionally disturbed even. For instance, as you begin to be aware of your own inner unconscious content, you may not be able to cope with your unconscious content. You become aware, oh, I have been such a hateful person, such a selfish person. You get shocked because you have been having a rosy picture of yourself all the time. Yeah? Or yes, my ego is so strong, I never realized it, for instance. You might experience something like this. Or your block, your hatred towards one of the members of the family, for instance. That kind of feeling can come up very strongly to you. So are you strong enough to cope with them? In order to have the strength, in order to the assurance that you don't get into trouble, at those moments, you must have the Dhamma, you must have a commitment. So when you look at the Dhamma, you can relate to the Dhamma. Oh yeah, this is what happened to me, according to the Buddha teaching. This is what I should do, I can do. This is where I have to pay more attention in my life, for instance. This is how I can get more inspiration by developing my faith. I have not developed enough about my emotion, for instance. So when you can become aware of this, and you can only be aware of this if you have a totalistic context. This is a very important thing. So when you can do this, only you can safeguard yourself. So that's how we can really solve problems of our negativities. Not just at that very moment, there's no magic as such. In a way, there's no shortcut as such, in the true sense. So I think this is one thing we should really be inspired, should really learn when you read the wording of even the first jhāna. So in this way, we have read through the 4 jhanas one by one, noting the important things. The other thing that we notice when we read this description is that in the meditational state, there is the emphasis of positive feelings, of joy, of rapture, of joy, of happiness. So last night I commented that we should be aware of a misconception about Buddhism, talking about Buddhist path being one which emphasizes suffering and all our defilements and how impure we are and so on. All these are true, of course. We have to suddenly gain insight into the unsatisfactoriness, even the suffering of human existence. But the Buddhist path is really a path of happiness, because it teaches us not only to be aware of our suffering, of our negativities, of the human predicament, it also goes on further. It doesn't stop there. To analyze how we end up like this. If you are sick, you go to a doctor, then doctor analyzes, diagnosis, and explain to you also. Most likely you get this sickness because of this. You are not careful about your living, not careful about your diet, and so on, you see. And what kind of medicine you should take. More exercise you must do. This my doctor tells me all the time. So it is like this. Buddhism doesn't just explain to you that life is suffering. Life is existence itself is unsatisfactory, but it explains to you, it analyzes for us why we end up like this. If we are not healthy, if we are sick, we don't have to be sick. But how do we get to sickness? We have to understand. Is it because of our negligence and so on? There are other factors, of course, which are beyond our control. For instance, if it's a case of heredity, of course, often it happens to us, genetic reasons. So there's little that we can do. But there are other factors. It's because there's too much pressure from your work, or from the family, that you have been always living under pressure and your mind has been very negative. Or it's because you don't spend time doing some exercise, for instance, etc. So Buddhism doesn't tell us just about the unsatisfactoriness of human existence, but it analyzes, and also further, it tells us that indeed you can be healthy. You can transcend your dukkha. This is the third truth. You can gain actually real, true, permanent happiness, real, true security. In the context of the sutra we are reading, you can really gain security and be free from Bhayabherava, the inner, intrinsic, if you like, fear within us, rooted in human existence, rooted in human experience. You can actually transcend that. The Buddha did that in the sutta. So, we look at Buddhism this way, you can see that it's very positive. In fact, not only that, finally, it also tells us the very path to transcend the human predicament and to gain enlightenment, to gain true, perfect happiness. I'm talking, of course, I'm referring to the context of the Four Noble Truths. So it starts with suffering, but it doesn't stop there. It analyzes how suffering comes about, and even it doesn't stop there. It tells us that in fact suffering can be transcended. There can be nirodha of dukkha. You can actually gain nibbana. And not only that, it then gives you a prescription, if you like. Just like the doctor, after telling you that your sickness can be cured, it gives you actual medicine. It tells you how to be careful about your living and so on. This is the actual description part of it. So you see that, for instance, in the Noble Eightfold Path, that's what Buddhism is. So Buddhism is definitely not a religion of pessimism. And in the description, coming back to the description of the four jhanas, you can sense this very, very well. Because in each description, you can see that as a result of your meditative practice, your preparation and the practice itself, the cultivation itself, there arises very positive states, such as piti, rapture, sukha, joy or happiness, and upekkha, equanimity. In fact, this positivity in our experience increases at ever higher and higher level. You begin with priti, which is a kind of if you like, excited kind of joy. Then you feel more calmed down. You experience what is called prasakti. Prasakti, another occurrence of the word. Pasati in Pali, a kind of a calm and pliability of your body. You feel fit. You feel spiritually fit. You feel mentally fit. You feel physically fit in meditation. You feel light. You feel that you are relieved of the pressure that you experience normally in your daily life. You see, meditation is actually the most is the safest and the most effective psychotherapy. That is why I usually advise Buddhists not to over-rely on the pharmacy, on the psychiatrist, but do more meditation. Learn more from the Dhamma. So you see in the descriptions of all these factors, piti, sukha, upekkha, and then you see that in your meditation there is always sati and sampajana. There's mindfulness, there is awareness, you are alert, you are aware. Clearly all these factors do not suggest any conception of trance, for instance. That's why I do not think that is a good translation. So meditative attainment, meditative states, even though if you do not properly attain any of these states, but you can have glimpses of them. That's the important thing. If you do daily meditation, always you can have a glimpse to varying degrees. You feel relieved, you feel happier. That's the best medicine. That's the best psychotherapy. Safest one. That's a value of Buddhist meditation. We see, for instance, in the first jhana that there is discursive thought, then there are subtle thought of the investigative nature. And at the same time, already, there is said to be happiness or joy, happiness and joy, born of detachment. When you are detached, it's not a case of deprivation. If you are away from all this social involvement, complexity of human relationship, and so on, it's not a case of being deprived, but actually it generates inner peace and joy. You get them from meditation. You see them in the description of the jhanas. And then, as I said, these positive states become more and more, if you like, sublimated to higher and higher levels. Your joy, your experience of pliability, physical and mental, become subtle and subtle. And your equanimity finally becomes fully purified in the fourth jhana. By the way, we read that according to the Sanskrit and northern materials, Abhidhamma materials, when you come to the fourth jhana, there is a purity of mindfulness and there is purity of equanimity. They are both there, you see. And in fact, you have purity in the true sense. And the emphasis there seems to be that it's not just purity of equanimity. That seems to be more emphasized in the Pali tradition, but in the Sanskrit tradition, these two are equally stressed in the fourth state. We also have seen that when they describe these so-called dhyāna or jhāna, the meditation factors, in the case of the first one, they are identical. That is to say, the description in the Pali and description in the northern materials are the same, but in the others, they differ somewhat. But they differ somewhat only because they look at them from different perspectives. So, for instance, in the Pali commentary or Abhidhamma tradition, upekkha is emphasized as a factor only in the fourth jhana, but clearly, explicitly, in the northern material, in the Sarvastivada, for instance, or even in the Abhidhamma material, the factor of upeksha occurs in both the third and fourth jhana and so on, you see. So there are differences in terms of perspective. But in any case, all these different traditions conspire, if you like, to confirm that meditative experiences are positive and blissful. That's an extremely important point. So compare this to the medicines you take from a psychiatrist. They are difficult, they have side effects, and they lead to other complications, and they definitely do not give you this kind of positive state of joy and equanimity that are described in the Buddhist account of the four jhanas. So when you contemplate like this, you realize the importance of meditation, why you must meditate. And not just thinking about meditation, not just reading about meditation, but actually doing them. That's why we emphasize this. I might add here that according to the Sarvastivada Abhidharma tradition, you see, anyway, first of all, before I say that, I have also emphasized another point that from all the accounts of the Buddha, his life, and actually from the overall descriptions of meditation in the Buddhist text, you can see that the four jhana, the first four jhana, definitely are of central importance. Although, what I mean is that, although you see often the scheme of the 8 meditative attainment or the 9 meditative attainments, if we include the Nirodha Samapatti, actually the overall impression you get is that it is the first 4 jhanas that are of primary importance. It is the first 4 jhanas that are emphasized by the Buddha. We have talked about it very much. For instance, if you look at the description of samadhi in the context of the Noble Path, actually is all explained in terms of the 4 jhanas, not of the other 4 so-called formless meditation or Nirodha Samapatti, but the 4 jhanas. Look at the Buddha's own practice also. And also, of course, in this context, we might mention that according to the commentary traditions that are agreed upon in both the northern and southern tradition, that is to say Pali tradition and the southern tradition, the Buddha principally practiced mindfulness of breathing. You can see that in the Mahavibhasha accounts, and for instance it is said that when the Buddha was in seclusion, he was meditating. And if others come to ask what was the Buddha meditating about, then it is said clearly that these people should be given the answer, Buddha was meditating on mindfulness of breathing. Likewise, we see the same emphasis in the Pali tradition. In fact, the commentary says, in the Bhayabherava commentary, the question asked by the commentator and answered, of course, also by them, what was the meditation subject that was taken up by the Buddha, through which he comes to a state of perfection. He enters into jhana and then eventually he was perfected, right? So meditation is an integral part of his struggle for perfection, of his attainment of perfection. That message is very clear from the account of the Bhayabherava Sutta. Okay, in that context, the commentators say very clearly, it is mindfulness of breathing, anapanasati. So I hope you realize the importance of what you're doing every week here with us. We emphasize mindful breathing. Do not think, oh, it's just a samatha method, not vipassana. You know, it's just like just a meditation which is essentially concentration exercise. But still, so it's so unfortunate. Mindful breathing is a whole path that leads you up to actually enlightenment if you do it properly. Do it at all levels and not confining it to just an antidote to distraction or the aspect of being just a concentration exercise. You know, there's a complication of later, starting from the commentary tradition, basically, of the emphasis on the vipassana methods in the modern way. You see, people think that vipassana is definitely, in every sense, superior, one-sidedly superior, and they played out on things like mindfulness of breathing because it is not exclusively vipassana exercises. Actually, according to the Buddha's teaching, one whose mind is concentrated sees things truly as they are. In other words, if you are psychically integrated, unified, wisdom unfolds in you. You see things truly as they are to gain wisdom. The two things are combined together. That is to say, what later on, somewhat later, described as samatha vipassana. Of course, those terms already occur in the sutta, and certainly, for instance, particularly in the Anguttara Nikaya, you see them described, but eventually it looks like more and more in the commentary tradition, Abhidhamma tradition, the two tend to be quite separated, and in modern days, there seem to be a somewhat, at least in some circles. I don't want to generalize. I do not think that it's reasonable for me to generalize, but at least I see in some circles the one-sided emphasis on the so-called vipassana training and playing down on samatha. From what we learn when we read about the Buddha's teaching of meditation in the suttas, the overall impression is that the two aspects are fully integrated. So this is something that we also can see in the account of the meditation in the sutta. So coming back to that part about the positive emotions that are developed, you see, in meditation is extremely important. We need this happiness, we need this joy, we need this sense of lightness, this sense of pliability in our struggle. And I might add one more thing here, I was trying to say just now it comes back to my mind. In the Saraswati tradition, you see, the path towards enlightenment is described in many ways, but one account is to speak of two types of paths. The path that is easy, the path that is difficult. The sukha pratipat and the dukkha pratipat. Pratipat is pratipata in Pali. Dukkha means difficult, sukha means easy. If you like, roughly speaking, we can say the easy way and the difficult way. Okay? Now understand that. What does the easy way refer to? What does the difficult way refer to? There are they use these two terms to refer to the first four jhanas and other types of meditative attainment. So the first four dhyānas here, this is in the San traditions, constitute the sukha pratipat, the easy path. Now, in order to gain enlightenment, to gain perfect insight, you can certainly rely on any of these meditative attainments. In fact, even including one I have introduced to you in their tradition called the Anagami Meijiteng. Can you remember that name? You see, that is the state bordering the first jhana. Now that brings us to another point, that according to all these traditions, you don't really even have to gain even the first jhana. So gaining a jhana and enlightenment, there was one question asked to me, and students seem to be confused, are two different things. Okay? It doesn't mean that you gain the first jhana, you gain one stage of spiritual enlightenment. The second jhana highest to enlightenment. It's not like that, you see. And then the fourth jhana is perfect enlightenment. That's very wrong. By the way, unfortunately, this kind of misconceptions have been introduced in, for instance, even in modern Sri Lanka, in one meditation circle. One master was talking about, as very much as if the attainment of the four jhanas are just like the attainment of the four fruits, which is extremely wrong. There's no justification at all. So let me. Fortunately, of course, that particular teacher was only one example among many other great teachers. Anyway, coming back to this, so according to that tradition, it means that the first four jhana constitute the easy path. So you can, for instance, even without getting the first jhana, if you come to that state called Anagamiya, what does it mean? It means that although one doesn't have to gain a state of jhana, but one's psychic energies, if you like, must be sufficiently integrated at the same time. You must have sufficient mental stability. You must have sufficient meditative attainment, at least up to that stage, bordering the first jhana. So, you can't just rely on, for example, your intellectual understanding. You must come to a state when you become sufficiently integrated, unified in energy, in your personality. Then, on the basis of that, you can develop wisdom. Still, you have to develop wisdom, insight. Okay, so you can do that at that kind of stage, or in the stage of the first jhana, or in the state of second jhana, the state of fourth jhana, and it goes on like that. All this meditative state, yes. But the interesting thing is that at the same time, it's emphasized that it is the first four jhanas, the first four dhyānas that represent the easy path. Why is that? Well, the explanation is that it's only in the first four dhyānas that samatha and vipassana are balanced, are properly integrated. And when you have both, then insight arises easily. Now, in, for instance, that stage called the not yet reached stage, the stage just bordering the first jhana, dhyana, called the Anagamiya, the insight part aspect is more. Likewise, in the intermediate state between, say, the first and second and third and fourth, and so on, there is an intermediate stage. These are states where the contemplative side is more, but not sufficient concentration, not sufficient samatha. Conversely, when you come to the four, for instance, of the four formless kind of meditative attainments, and Nirodha Samapatti, certainly also, you have overwhelming concentration or samatha, but not enough vipassana. Okay? So therefore it's difficult for, you can understand that easily, it's difficult for your insight to arise in those states. It is within the 4 dhyānas where samatha and vipassana are in balance, are properly integrated, that you find the most ideal basis for the unfoldment of insight. That's why these 4 parts are called these 4 dhyānas are called together, collectively, the easy path. And also, in fact, according to their tradition, when you use the word dhyāna, that word is confined only to the first 4 states. And it doesn't apply to the formless meditative attainment, the 4 arupya, meditative attainments, and also to the Nirodha Samapatti. So when they speak of dhyāna, then they make it very clear that that word applies only to the first 4. Why is that? Again, the same experience given. It is only in the first 4 dhyāna that samatha and vipassana are in balance. So from this account, from this tradition, you can see that definitely it came about because of this, the emphasis on the centrality of the first 4 dhyānas. These are in fact the truly Buddhist meditations. By the way, there is an interesting book by Bromhurst, entitled The 2 Buddhist Traditions of Meditation, if I'm not mistaken. You can look up that book also, where he is good research, where he shows that the system of the 4 meditation, 4 dhyānas are actually Buddhistic and taught in the Buddhist tradition. You can say that they're taught by the Buddha in a broad sense, and not the other highest one. So higher only in certain sense, that doesn't mean they are superior. So remember that if you talk about superiority, actually it is the first 4. If you talk about centrality, actually it's the first 4. So that's what we learn from reading this account in our class.